Boom, what's up, everybody? Welcome the Gymnastics Mindset Academy. I am super pumped because this is the first time we get to talk. So, like, these are the most enjoyable conversations because I feel like it's a get to know you and I get to learn about you and like nothing scripted. So, it's like we get to go down any rabbit hole that we want to go down. So, yes, I'm fired up. Welcome. And as always, before we get rocking and rolling, wild or funny story, what do you have for everybody down that rabbit hole?
Okay, well, I actually just met with a bunch of my alumni gymnastics friends, and so this story came up, and so it's fresh in my mind. But we were on a travel meet, and we were flying, and honestly, I was probably in middle school or high school. I'm was older than I would like to admit to be during this conversation that happened. But we're on the airplane, and it's like one of those like short hopper flights and then a long flight. So we're on the short hopper flight, and everybody's like, okay, like let's tell the next flight that it's our first time flying so we can get wings, like the pin.
Yeah,
And I was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
okay, cool. That sounds like a fun idea. Like, let's get some wings. So we land at the airport and we're between flights, and my mom is like, do you want to get some food before the next flight? And I was like, no, mom, it's fine. We're gonna get wings on the next flight. She was like,
Oh, oh, oh.
what do you mean? You're like, she still had the pin in her mind. And she was like, that has nothing to do with food. I don't understand. Like, why would you
Yeah.
not? Like, mom, it's like, we're going to get wings. What don't you understand about this? We keep saying the same thing. And she finally died laughing and was like, Allie, they mean a pin. You are not getting a plate of chicken wings on this airplane. And I was like, oh.
That is hilarious.
So that is one of my favorite travel stories that nobody has ever let me live down. And I promise I usually have a little more intelligence than that. But
Yeah,
that day I must have been hungry. I was ready for those chicken wings. And now that's what I'm known for.
that is hysterical. Yeah.
Mhm.
I didn't even know where we were going with this. And then I feel like Stacie, either you knew this story or you knew where it was going because I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
she knows where it's headed. And I was like, where are we going? Like,
I know. Surprise to everybody. Chicken wings. So you
I
win some,
love
you
it.
lose some.
That's hysterical. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that's funny. That's a great icebreaker. Now I'm like even more intrigued about like the origin story of you guys, and like I feel like there's a better story behind that. So anyways, yeah, great place to start, and let's dive in. And like I said, I know nothing about like you guys or like how you guys like got going and like why this academy has started and how it's built and been grown. So, selfishly, I would love to just get your guys kind of backstory and like why it was built and how the idea came about and why it's so meaningful to you guys to do what you're doing now and just kind of give us a little foundation of like how this whole thing got going.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Stacy, do you want to lead us off on this one?
Sure, I'll get started. So I back in 2016, I
Mhm.
used to blog about elite level gymnastics. So
Okay.
my blog was called Beam Dreams, and it was my dream to be media at the Olympics. And so I got to go to the 2016 Olympics, and I remember going and being like, this is going to be like the most amazing experience ever. And it was terrible. Like
Wow.
you would walk into like a Walgreen type store. I mean, we were at Rio, but you would walk into just a drugstore and the tension was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Like everywhere you went, no one was happy. Everyone was just like tense because they were
Wow.
there for the Olympics and this was
Yeah.
their
Yeah.
team. And I was there with a bunch of chaplains, and a number of them said being at the Olympics is like doing 10 funerals and one wedding every single day.
Yeah.
And that's what it felt like for sure. And I was there to cover gymnastics, but I had particularly connected with Lori Hernandez and her family. And so, was kind of hearing a lot of the backstory of what's happening. And I just was like, this is not what this is supposed to be like. And then I remember
Right.
all the stuff started happening with Gabby and like all the backlash against her. And I was walking and I was like, I just want to help these girls.
Mm,
Like
mm.
this is they've worked their entire life, they've given up everything to be here, and it's this like like this is not what I thought it would be. And I know that there was a little bit of like, that's not what they thought it would be either. And I
Right.
just remember this feeling of like, I just want to help them. So then a couple of years later, I hit a point in my life where my gymnastics tendencies of perfectionism and people pleasing just kind of hit a roof. My dad had a stroke. He had all these mental things that then I had to take control of. And I did it for about a year, got him to a good place, and then crashed, like could not get off the
Yeah.
couch for like 3 months.
Wow.
So in doing that, I went to a school called the Life Coach School to just figure out myself and to start
Yeah.
be able to operating. And first I did counseling, and then I got to a healthy place with counseling, but it was like, oh, you've taught me how to feel my feelings. And now I feel like terrible all the time. And so the life coach school, I learned cognitive behavioral tools to like learn how to thrive.
Right, right.
And I just kept thinking, like, I remember being back in 2016 going, I just want to help these girls, but I have
Hmm.
no idea how to help them. Like at the time, I was like, I can tell their story writing, and
Right.
that's it, but that's not helping them. And
Right.
so when I then learned these tools, I was like, these are it. Like this, like if the gymnastics community had these tools, it would be a game changer. Because I think like I look around and so much of like the stuff that happens in the gymnastics communities, even when there's like unhealthy coaching or
Right.
let's just say abusive coaching, a lot of times it comes from this like, I don't know how to help them get over their fear, but I know that when I'm mean, they do it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
when they're
Yeah.
more scared of me than the skill, they do the skill. Or when they're more scared of not making the lineup, or they're more scared of having to do strength and conditioning. Like fear is the only thing that works to overcome their fear. And so I have a theory that that's a lot of where the unhealthy coaching kind of
Yeah.
happens.
That makes
And so I was
sense.
like, if we could learn to use these tools to help gymnasts actually just learn how to overcome their fear and coaches how to do it, like we would change the whole gymnastics. And I think gymnasts are world changers. They're just the type of personality that are going to go out and change the world afterwards. So, in my brain, if we help gymnasts become healthy, we change the world. So that's how I got into it. And so then I decided to get certified as a life coach through the life coach school. And I was like, I just want to use these tools to help gymnasts, but I don't really know how to go about
Oh,
it.
where do I start?
Yeah. And someone was like, hey, there's somebody else doing that. And I was like, what? They're like, yeah,
LOL.
there's someone else in the life coach school that's doing that. And they connected with me with her. And then she was connected with Ali. So, Ali,
So
you want to tell your part?
yeah, mine was not quite as dramatic as Stacie's experience at the Olympics, but I did gymnastics at UW La Crosse.
Okay.
And then I ended up coaching there for 5 years as the assistant coach and recruiting and doing all the things. And I mean, as everybody knows, at the college level, you still have gymnasts that are dealing with mental blocks and dealing with performance anxieties and all the things that they deal with also in club before they get to college.
Right.
And I don't know if you can tell, I'm kind of like the hype girl personality type.
Yeah.
Always been the rah rah, loudest one in the gym. Like that's definitely my personality. My master's degree is in strength and conditioning, so like I was in the weight room with football guys yelling. Like
Yeah.
that's just been
Well,
my thing. And so I just kind of got to a point where I was like, actually, I felt like the opposite end, where I definitely wasn't a use fear type of person. I was like, if I am as positive and as hype as possible, I can get every single girl to do what I want them to do as a coach. That's what I thought. You know, I was like, it'll be great. But shockingly, my hypeness couldn't overcome some of these mental blocks and some of these major fears. And as a coach, I didn't like not being able to help them. Shocker there too, right? I feel like a lot of us are just like in this place of I really want to help them, but I don't know how. And that's when I went on my search to figure out how to help. And actually, what happened was I was at a camp with one of my like kid gymnasts, and we were at camp, and she was like, I was like, oh, what was your favorite thing about camp? And she was like, the mindset rotation. And I was like, oh, what do you mean the mindset? That was a weird thing for a high schooler to tell me.
yeah.
And I learned it with somebody certified in the life coach school. I dug into the life coach school certification. We brought girls in to actually um, teach the model and stuff to our college girls, and it was like life changing. Like to the point, I was actually coaching with Sam Sharinsky at this point, and me and him would be like, "Oh my gosh, we know that this person definitely got mindset coaching today because they were like in just such a better place." And so we just saw all these positive changes. And we had a girl, it was like the tipping point for me. So she was going to be in lineup, well, for conference. If she hit beam at conference, we knew that she was going to score the highest. But we've been a hot mess all year, hitting, not hitting, like getting hair stuck in Velcro at me. It's like wild. Some wild things happen. And so we like before conference, we're kind of like, hey, like, how you feeling? And she looked us dead in the eyes and was like, at this point, I know that I'm in charge of my thoughts and that will determine my outcome, so I know I can hit. We're like, oh, oh, I've never heard her speak like that in my
Yeah.
entire life. She won beam at conference.
That's
And she
awesome.
qualified to nationals, and then it was COVID, and so everything got shut down. We didn't get to like finish that. But the moral of the story is I just saw this impact, and the head coach at lacrosse, who's still there, Casey, she literally said to me, she was like, I think you should go get certified as a life coach and bring these tools to gymnasts before they get to college. I was like, I think you're right. And then I meet Stacie, and that's how we kind of come together. So two very different stories, but in just like the
Yeah.
sense of like the world, we just felt the gymnastics world needed this.
Yeah. As you guys came together, as you guys
Mhm.
met, is like, I don't know if philosophy is the right word, but as you guys sat down and was like, hey, like we have something here, there's a community of people that we want to help, is like, how did you guys, I don't know. I'll give a personal example and then like maybe that'll help like ask the question is like when
Okay.
people were like, Ryan, if you had to sum everything that you did up into one word, what would it be? And so for me, I'm like, oh, that's easy. It would be identity, right? Like that is at its core, like how I would sum everything up. So as you guys came together and you kind of wanted to like merge these ideas and help this community, is how did you start to sum up, if you will, like what it is that you guys wanted to do?
Good question.
A very good
I
question.
mean, I don't think we ever I don't think we ever like did sum up into
Right.
one word or sum up, but I vibe with what you're saying. And I think that if I that's never a word that I would have thought, but that really is it for both of us, is like it like I talked about being, people pleaser and
Yeah.
perfectionist. It's like when you get down to the core of being able to believe that you're worthy no matter what. And when you begin to be able to understand, I think too, so the life coach school teaches a really specific way of thinking about the world,
Mm,
specifically a specific way of managing your brain. And so
right.
it's based on cognitive behavioral therapy, but it's not therapy. It's just kind of the idea that what you think creates how you feel, which then is what you do. And so since Ali and I both were like spent a year in training under the same exact like
Yeah.
teaching philosophy, I think and then we both come from the same like let's help these girls have an identity that's strong. It was just kind of an instant click, but I don't even know that we ever even talked about it. It's actually kind of funny. I think we worked together and owned a business together for over a year before we even ever even met in person once.
Oh,
We've
interesting.
probably only
Mhm.
been in person, I don't know, 5, 10 times together total in our whole, but we
Mhm.
like when we talk every day.
Yeah.
Literally, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But I just think we just instantly connected. So I don't know that there was ever even a conversation around that. I think
Just
we
like,
just
all right,
went,
how do we do this?
yeah,
Let's go. We hit the ground running. We're both kind of doers. And so we did an obnoxious amount of work in the front end to really start just creating what we wanted to.
yeah,
So I guess then once you get off and running, obviously it's like eyeballs are important in the sense of like awareness, like, hey, this is
yeah.
what we're doing. This is the community that we want to help. And so how'd you guys start to like draw awareness and really like let
Mm.
the world community know of like, hey, like this is what we're after. And this is like, I feel like would be really valuable, like for everyone to get involved in.
For me, I actually was still coaching in the gym while I was
Okay.
doing this. And so I coach at Champion Gymnastics in Holland, and Tammy, who was my coach, was also coaching there still, and I was coaching with her. And she's very well connected into the gymnastics world. And so it was just nice as we traveled to meets and I talked to people, and it was really helpful in and getting a realistic sense of like what can coaches do in person in the gym and what's realistic and what
Mm,
needs to be done like outside of the gym, because I mean you only have so much time and equipment and space, and like I can't sit down and talk through all of the things with a gymnast in the middle of practice.
right.
And there were things that I thought I could do that I couldn't. You know what I mean? So I just had like that situation where I was like kind of feeling it out and doing both for a while. And through that, I just had lots of conversations with different coaches and different gymnasts. And I feel like we got tons of girls in Michigan at first to start, and then it kind of spread into Region 5, and it just kind of started growing from there. And so it was really helpful to be a part of the coaching world while doing this mindset coaching as well. And then also we do mindset coaching still for UW lacrosse. And
Mm,
so a lot of the girls coming in for being recruited know that we work with them, and a lot of like people in the Division 3 community, I feel like as well, just in general, know that this has been my mission. So I think just being connected with coaches and just staying in the gymnastics world. And then we started doing conference,
mm,
speaking at congresses, and starting doing things like that to just meet others and connect, and doing things like this. We love meeting new people and just
yeah.
connecting and getting people. I think there's a lot of people that have this mission and this idea in mind and want this for their athletes at this point, like this positive experience, and to be able to help them overcome. And so it's been really cool to just see people kind of gather and come that have that same goal.
And I went the other route while she was doing that, which was learning every possible thing I could about marketing and social
Yeah.
media. And I joined like a business coaching program that was like, how do you do the marketing part? How do
Right.
you do that? And so I jumped in on Facebook ads and how to run ads and how to run our social media and how to all do a podcast and all of that, YouTube channel, all of that kind of stuff. So I went in pretty heavy on that while she was doing the more in-person
Shaking hands and
connections.
kissing babies
Yeah.
out there.
And we have definitely, like Tammy and Claudia are some champions of us who are more connected in the USAG world, and then
Yeah.
got us in to speak at our first regional congress because they believed in us, and then we were invited to nationals. And so definitely have had people along the way that have helped us get connected to people. But I don't know, you asked the question, I'm like, does anybody know we exist? Go through the like, I don't know, you look at digital statistics and you're like, does anybody know?
Well, it's funny from like an actual like marketing like perspective is they always say it's like how like we get tired of our own stories before like the world does, the audience
Yeah.
does. And it's like we tell our origin story so much, we're like everyone knows. And it's like you could probably go poll like your followers on Instagram. It's like, hey, do you know I have a book or a course or a PDF or this thing? And they'll be like, no. And it's like, what do you mean? I post every day. Like, how do you not know? Right. So it is interesting. It's
Yeah.
like we do think sometimes we're like, everyone's tired of the story or everyone's tired of
Yeah.
me posting. And the reality is like most people just don't know, which
No.
is
Yeah.
really fascinating.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Um, okay, I want to go down the like value, like the personal value rabbit hole a little bit. Because Stacie, I think it was one of your videos. I think this is what even like led me to like reaching out to you guys about like doing a podcast. It was like I don't even remember who you were talking to, but you had like $20 bill in your hand, right? And you're like, what's the value of it, right? And it's like
Yes.
$20. And it was like,
Oh
okay, and I
yeah.
crumble it up. Like, what's the value of it? And he's like, the point being is like how much value we have. And I was like, oh, like, because at the core of like an identity, my very first mentor, it's funny that you guys like talk about that because she was like, Ryan, like at the root of it, like 99, like why people don't get what they want 99.99999% of the time is like they don't feel valuable or worthy enough to have said thing, right? So they don't
Yeah.
behave in a certain way, so they don't speak to them, they don't speak to themselves a very specific way. So talk to me a little bit about like how you like present that to somebody because it's sometimes it's hard to just like get on a call for the very first time. It's like you don't feel valuable enough yet, right? So it's like how do you navigate those waters to help them understand of like, hey, it's not as complicated as we want to think it is. It's like there's this path, and if I can get you to understand this, and then snowball that you look yourself in the mirror and love yourself and love who you are and know how valuable and worthy you are is like success is going to come quantum leaped easier.
Yeah.
So yeah, like how do you navigate some of those conversations and help people understand that? Because I do believe, which it sounds like we align with that, is like at its root, at its core, like that's the thing.
Totally. I think one of the things that is backwards in our society and then really in sports is the reason they don't think they're valuable is because they believe that they're only valuable once the results prove it. I don't get to just decide I'm a good gymnast. I have to have results that prove I'm a good at this thing. So I don't get to believe in myself until I've proven it. And so what we help them understand is it works the opposite way. Because when you don't believe in yourself, then you feel hesitant and uncertain and doubtful and nervous and scared and pressure. And so when you go into a competition feeling those things, you perform poorly. And then your brain goes, I always tell them this way, and then your mean old brain goes, see, I told you you weren't good enough. But it had nothing to do that you weren't good enough. It's only because you were thinking you weren't good enough that you created the result of not being good enough. So
Right.
we kind of really go into the way that you get the result that proves it is believing first. And the way that you believe first is rewiring your brain. And I think like that's one of the things that we teach in a little bit different way than I see in most places is like most places are like, you just got to believe in yourself. You just got to think positively. But the reality is our brains are wired before we're 7 years old.
Right.
60,000 thoughts a day, 85% of them are negative because our brains are wired for our survival. So our brain is always looking around what could be a threat, what could be a threat, what could be a threat. And when we're 5, 6 years old and it's getting wired, like we don't know how to interpret the world correctly. And so one of the things that we teach is you actually have to literally rewire your brain. You can't just think positively because you've got neural pathways, and I always describe them like a road. Your neural pathways are like a freeway in your brain. And that freeway, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, it is well lit. It is paved. It's 4 lanes. It is fast. And it doesn't matter that goes off a cliff. Your brain's like, that's the road I want to drive on.
Yeah.
And what we have to do is we have to go build a new road in the jungle. And we got to cut down all the things and we got to pave it, and it's hard work. Even though that new road is going to actually get you to the location you want to go to, your brain's never going to want to go to it. And so we actually have to teach your brain step by step how to build this new road. And so we use a process called the thought ladder to go step by step into building these new thoughts and helping them know that it's not just like, well, I tried to think positively and I couldn't. It's like, well, that's like, well, I tried to do a handspring step out, layout step out on the high beam and I've never even learned to do it on the floor. Like you have to learn in stages and and so just in the same way. So I think it's a double thing. It's like one, it's understanding that the reason you're struggling is because of the belief. So that's the first step is they're like, no, I don't get to believe I'm good until it's proven. Yep. And so first is helping them understand, no, you prove that you end up doing well once you believe that you're good. But then the second part is rewiring to get to that place where you believe that you're good is a step-by-step process. And it's not just a matter of will just think, well, because nobody can, you know?
Yeah. Ali, did you want to touch on that any before I have a follow-up question to that?
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess the only thing that I would follow up is sometimes they have a hard time getting there. Like a lot of times they don't come to us being like, I don't think I'm worthy. So like that's not usually the root of like I mean, it's the root of why they are there, but they don't know that it is. And
Correct.
so
Yeah.
there is a lot of I feel like getting them outside of themselves and like helping them like see it in somebody else's perspective. Like recently, I was meeting with somebody about not making a lineup on a college team, and I was like, "Oh, are there other girls on the team that like aren't making the lineup?" And she was like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Oh, do you think that they're worthless to the team?" And she's like, "Absolutely not." And I was like, "Okay, like then why are you telling me that you are? Like, how is your situation different?" And she's like, "Oh, it's not." And so
Yeah.
it's a lot easier to help show them on others. So a lot of times first before getting to themselves, the best friend method. If it was your best friend, what would you say or what would you do or what would you? And I just find that that actually helps them be more willing to like have those conversations, if that makes sense.
100%.
So
Yeah. Why do you, because I fully believe and align with like the idea of like just think better, just positive self-talk your way to success is kind of like total BS. It's not that positive self-talk doesn't matter, but in and of by itself is not that effective. Just to like just I'm the best, I'm the best, I'm the best, right? Like looking in the mirror, just saying that because you don't feel that internally, right? And
Mhm.
so my question here is why do you guys feel that like I mean, I guess it's like my big enemy is like society. I feel like society places so many like just beliefs and hardwires like us to like think a
Yeah.
very specific way is like why do you think that that's so heavy like in society of just like well just think positive we'll just think positive it's like well like no crap dude like if it was just that easy it's like everybody would be successful because all I'd have to do is just like fake it till I make it and just think a positive thought and everything will go well but why do you think that that message continues to thrive honestly
I
You
think
know,
there's two parts. Go
oh,
ahead,
go ahead.
Allie.
Oh, I was just gonna say that like I'm not sure. I'll let Stacie get into like why it continues to thrive, but like I do feel like I see a lot like in this mentality that like they shouldn't have negative thoughts and that they're bad and that like the negative feelings are bad and they shouldn't have them. And like the reality is like that's just like a part of the human experience is to
right
have positive and negative emotions. And so like I feel like as soon as they have them, they try and shut them down and like switch to this positive. And it's I guess I don't know why society has decided that that is the thing, but that is like the thing. Like don't feel negative emotions, only feel positive emotions, and then that's the only way to be successful. And that it's overwhelming because then they feel like something's wrong and something's bad when they
right
have those thoughts and they're like, I shouldn't be nervous. I shouldn't be blah blah blah. And I'm like, whoa, like you're nervous because you totally care and want to do well. Like I don't understand why that's a problem. Like and so
yeah
so just kind of like helping loosen some of that is where we're at. But Stacie, it sounded like you had the societal part.
Yeah. Well, I think it's it's when you see the results of people, but you didn't see their process to get there. So a
mm,
Yeah.
lot of people will talk about
mm,
their results are because of positive talk. Their results are because they believed in themselves. Their results are, and so like you see people who are being really successful modeling this and saying that that's how they're getting the results. And it is.
yeah
But what you've missed is the years that it took them to learn to develop that. Now, I do think that there are some people who personality wise are more naturally that way. And I think it depends on the home that you grew up in and the world that you grew up in. I have to work. Oh, would you agree, Allie? I have to work a
Mhm.
lot harder on my brain to get to good places than Allie does. Like Allie's family upbringing was very different than my family upbringing. And so like I have to do a lot of work to get there. So I think there are some people who they are more naturally that way
yeah
and they don't know how to be. It's like you see that when somebody's a really good gymnast but they're a terrible coach because they don't know how to help like they could just do it so they don't know how to teach somebody to do it. So I think you've
100%.
got that going on. You've got people who are really successful who they don't know how they got that way, but they can't. So they just tell people just do it. But then I think the people who did have to work to get there, like our society doesn't value the process, just the end result. And so I think that's part of why, because you did the exact, you like hit on the exact part. It's not about what you're saying to yourself. It's about how what you're saying to yourself makes you feel. And so positive affirmations do nothing if they don't make you feel a emotion that's going to then create positive momentum. And so, kids will tell themselves all the time, I've got this. And I'm like, okay, when you think I've got this, how does that feel? And well, half the time it makes them feel wonderful because they believe it. And
Yeah.
half the time it makes them feel terrible because they don't believe it. And so, but they just say all the time, well, I just have to tell myself I've got this because they know half the time it works,
Yeah.
but they don't know like why it works sometimes and why it doesn't. So I think part of it is that nuance of we've learned a lot in the last 5 to 10 years about neuroplasticity and brain science and how to actually change the brain. But like that part isn't being talked about. It's just the result part. But I think
Yeah.
like the other side of it is that our society more teaches, which is when you're hard on yourself, that will be motivating to you to do better. So tough love, being hard on yourself. So it's kind of this both and where it's like talk positively to yourself and like get out there and like do better next time,
Yeah.
And so I think that it's kind of that it's a double message too, where it's like if I'm too nice to myself or for coaches, like if I'm too easy on my gymnasts when they aren't doing the work they need to do, then they're not going to be motivated to work harder and get better.
Yeah. I think with that piece too is obviously as cliche as this sounds, is kind of the individual as well, based off of like how they were upbrought. Like if somebody naturally sees more value in themselves, it's like you're not going to have to be that hard on that person, right? So I think
Well,
that's
and we see like when you're hard on yourself or when your coach is hard on you, usually you feel defeated.
right.
And
Yeah.
when you feel defeated or you feel overwhelmed or you feel hopeless, then the actions that you take from that are avoiding working on it, are, like, I can't, why bother? I'm not going to get this. Like, it's actually, I don't know that it really actually works well with anyone.
Mm.
Because it's about them again, it's like how you feel is what's going to make you take action. And so when you're feeling defeated and hopeless and like incapable, then you don't usually put in the effort. But when you're feeling like, okay, I can do better than this, it is possible, then you're willing and motivated to keep doing the work.
Yeah. How I'm a big like proponent of being mindful of like what meaning you give things. And so
Yeah.
I'm curious of like how much that comes into like y'all's philosophy and things that you talk about, because it's like very few things in life. The analogy always, very few things in life are like inherently good or bad. It's like the meaning that we give it. And so the analogy I look at is I've recently moved to Minnesota and I'm from Alabama. And when snow falls on the ground, people up here seem to love it. Me, on the other hand, I'm like, it is time to be a hermit. We're staying inside and and aside from taking the dog to take a leak outside, like we're not going out there. Right. But so it's same scenario, but like for one person, it's the greatest day of their life. And for me, it's like, this is absolutely miserable. And
100%.
so, same with results, right? Like when things happen,
Mhm.
unwanted or like things that you shot out for or sought out and achieved, is how important is it to like be mindful of like when those things happen, what meaning that you're giving it.
Um, we talk a lot about this in general, and we kind of separate it between like facts or circumstances versus your thoughts
Mm,
of like what happened versus what you think about what happened. And we all have different ways of explaining it. I actually usually tell a story about a tarantula. I know me and my weird stories, but it's one of those things where it's outside of gymnastics once again, so it kind of helps them get outside of themselves and understand the concept. But I am horrified of spiders, like just like a whole hot mess. Way better than I used to be. But um it was like this story about how I'm hiking and how I see this tarantula. There's like there's a group of people like hanging out and they're looking at something, talking about how cool it is and asking questions. And I was like so interested and ran up there to go see it and then started like bawling and like had a full panic attack, meltdown. This is a spider, like had to get carried up the mountain. Like it was horrible. And so then I asked all the gymnasts, they're like what was I afraid of? And they're like, well, the spider. And I'm like, well, but if the spider could like inject fear into me, then how come every single person standing in that circle wasn't feeling the same way as me?
Mm.
Because if the spider injected the fear into me, then every single person there would have been having a panic attack like me.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay. And I'm like, so what was I afraid of? And then they start, saying like, oh, of being bit or of all these things. And I'm like, yeah. So my thoughts about this spider was that I was going to die. It was the worst day of my life. And I never ever wanted to do anything again that had to do with hiking in Arizona. And they were like, so like, of course I was feeling this fear. And then I talk about the people standing around it. I was hearing lots, I can still feel this very vividly because I'm so like tortured by it. But and then like there's people talking about like, oh, I wonder what kind it is. I wonder if it's, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, they're all just like curious about it. And then there are people from Arizona that are like, oh yeah, it's a tarantula. They're there all the time, like whatever, they don't care. And I'm like, so our thoughts gave that spider meaning. Our thoughts are what determined how we felt about that spider. And then I tell them that tarantulas are just like skills or events or like a score. It's the same thing. Like you give a score meaning, what
Mm.
you decide about that score. And so I also then kind of ease in a story about how once I got like a 7-8 on bars, and it was the happiest day of my life because that meant I got to do level 10 and never do bars again. Because that was before you could do event specialist stuff and you just had to get an all-around score or whatever. And I had whatever, long story short. And I was like, if you got a 7-8 on bars, how would you feel? And they were like, not happy like you. And I'm like, okay, same, the number is the exact same. And our thoughts about it gave it meaning. So we put a lot of time and energy on like, or even like what somebody says to them, a parent or a coach. Like
Yeah.
they say, I give this story too. I have a lot of stories right now, but like I balked on a vault once, and my coach literally said, "Well, that was a bummer." And that was like the worst day of my life. I was like, my coach hates me. I'm never gonna get put in lineup again. This is like the worst thing ever. And I went through like this full panic. And literally, my coach, I told her later, now that, I was like, it was so horrible. And she was like, well, like, what did you want me to say to you? Like, yay, you balked. Like, I was like, that's fair. And she was like, I just said it was a bummer and you thought it was a bummer too. And I was like, yeah, that's true. And so it's just kind of like that perception of like, I gave it all this meaning about who I was as a gymnast and how good I was and all of this stuff. And it was literally just a vault. The only
Yeah.
thing that was true was that I did not flip my vault. And then I made that mean whatever I wanted to make that mean. And so yeah, seeing the good, seeing the bad, and really just taking control of like that's what you get to decide. You get to decide what that means. And actually, usually at first, sometimes they're a little like, oh, so like upset that they're making things mean something bad, but then they realize like how much power that gives them.
I always ask them, why is that the best news you have heard in your
Mm.
entire life?
That's good.
Yeah.
Because you can't change an event or skill or what somebody said, but you can change your thoughts about it to serve you better. So
Yeah.
my favorite example of it is being like, Ali, I hate your pink hair. What is your thought about that?
I don't have pink hair. You
Right.
weirdo.
Weird old lady, I don't have pink hair. But if you had just dyed your hair pink and you were thinking, I don't know, this may not have been a great decision.
Right.
And I was like, Ali, I hate your pink hair. Then what would you potentially think?
I'd be really sad.
Yeah, then you're like, oh, she's right. I should have done it. It's
Mm,
only when we are already kind of thinking that this might be true about us and that this is negative, that it's bad, or when we're already giving it a negative meaning and then someone else says it, that it bothers us. It doesn't bother
right.
us a lot if we don't believe it. Um, and so but yeah, I was coaching a girl yesterday about she's, trying to get recruited D1 and she had a really bad meet and I was like, what did you make that I said, like, if you let's just go the worst case scenario, you like you don't end up doing college gymnastics, not even D3, like we don't do college gymnastics, could you handle that? And she was like, no, I couldn't handle it. And I'm like, you don't think you'd like go to college anyways and maybe have an amazing college experience because you didn't have
Right.
to like be an athlete and you got to like be with your friends and do all the fun things? And she's like, no, I couldn't handle it. And I was like, okay, well, why do you think you couldn't handle it? She's like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, what would you be making that mean? And
Yeah.
she's like, that I wasn't good enough, And so then like you said, it always goes back to identity. So I use a lot of like, what do you make that mean? Um, to like
Yeah.
get to like that part. But it
I even
always comes back down to they make it mean their identity, like that I'm not good enough or that there's something wrong with me. Yeah.
And I even think that spills over into like the emotional side too. Cause I know like for me is, I can ask a kiddo of like, when you think of the word anxiety, immediately do you think good or bad? And right, like nine times out of 10, they'll be like, oh, that's bad. I'm like, well, honestly, is like for me, I said before, anytime I go talk to you guys as a team, I get really nervous, right? And I was like, I like that because it forces me to be like, okay, where are my notes, right? Like it makes me put blinders on of like, okay, what am I trying to do in this next hour? What am I trying to do in this next 30 minutes? And so it forces me to focus. And so nervousness or anxiety is like, I like look forward to that. I'm like, yes, all right, it's time to lock in, right? And so it's like, it took time, right? I wasn't born that way. As a competitor, wrestling's my background, but like that overwhelmed me then. But I had to reframe, right? Give that a completely different meaning now. Otherwise, it's like you guys would think I'm terrible all the time because I'd just be consumed with like, what are they thinking about? Was that the right thing to say? Was that good? Was that bad? Did they like me? Did they not like me? And it was just like would be overwhelming in that moment. Um, so
Can
yeah,
I
it's
go down
funny.
one more rabbit hole
Yeah,
from
let's do
that?
it. Yeah,
So I think that takes us into the other main big thing, which is most of them are usually worried about what other people think.
100%.
And the reason that there's two reasons they're worried about what other people think. So we tell a lot of stories.
You and me both.
This
I
is
Yes.
how
know.
we
I'm like, it
teach.
helps them understand.
I
But so
totally agree.
I tell a story about like, okay, we're cave girls. And you walk into the cave and I am like, Allie, get out. You are not good enough to be here, or you're too good to be here. We don't want you here anymore. Like, get out. I'm throwing you out of the cave. I'm like, so you're a teenage girl and you're like thrown out of the cave into the wilderness to survive on your own. What's going to happen?
I
And they,
will die.
yeah, they usually don't want to say it, but eventually they're like, I would probably die. And I'm like, yeah, you would die. It's not probably like you wouldn't have made it.
Yeah.
And so our primitive primary brain is like, if people in our world, especially our coaches, our teammates, our parents, are unhappy with us, our brain perceives that as a life or death situation. And so just helping them go like, but it's not. Like, even if your coach threw you out, like, are you going to go in the wilderness and die? Like, no, of course not. And so I think that's the first part. But the other part is because of that, all of us as humans, like all three of us sitting here right now, are mostly thinking about ourselves
Mm.
because our survival brain is like, are we going to survive? Are we
Hmm.
okay? What do other people think about me? Da da da. And I was like, so when you go to a meet, are you thinking about everyone else? And they're like, no, I'm thinking about myself. Am I good enough? Do they like me? How do I add up? Am I going to score well enough? And I was like, yeah. And every other person there is also thinking about themselves, including your coaches.
Yeah.
And so our life coach school, comes from her, but she teaches us, like she taught us, other people's thoughts about you are none of your business
Yeah.
because they have nothing to do with you. Their thoughts about you are about themselves. So if
Mm,
I have a bad thought about you, it's because of a perception that I have of myself that's negative, of how I think it's all about me. My thought about you is always about me. It has nothing to do with you. And so I'll tell them, like, if your coach's diary was like on the table, would you read it? And some of them are like, yeah. And others are like, no. And I was like, if they caught you reading it, would you feel terrible? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, why? And they're like, that's their private business. I was like, yeah, their thoughts are always their private business. They are none of your business. And so you don't have to be worried about, like, what is my coach thinking about me? What is the da da da? Like, your brain is going to worry about that
right.
because the primitive wiring of your brain is always going to make it be doing that. But like, the reality is it has nothing to do with you. And even if it did, you're not going to die. And
Yeah.
so, like, helping them let go of other people's thoughts about them, I think, is some of the other, like, deepest identity work to do.
Yeah. It's interesting that you say that too, is because I'll be like, what's your biggest fear? Right. And 9 times out of 10, they're like, fear of failure. I'm like, no, it's not. And they're like, well, what is it then? I'm like, it's the fear of judgment that comes with the failure, right? Because I was like, have you ever played a video game and like died in the level? Like, did you just turn the video game off and be like, I'm never doing this again, I suck, right? It's like, no, you just kept playing the game until you beat the game. Why? Right? Because no one was in the room, right? Like, it was just you and the video game playing. And so it's like, even with them, I'm like, your biggest fear, right, is not falling off the beam. Is you have told this story in your brain of like, well, if I fall off the beam, there's 10,000 people, and then I'm going to go viral on TikTok, and everyone's going to have all these things to say about me, and da 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 da. It's like you go down this like deep dark rabbit hole because it has nothing to do with the failure. It's drawing awareness that ultimately your fear is like of the judgment. Now, what stories are you allowing to go in your brain that it's reinforcing that fear of like being judged? Because I totally agree. Yeah, it's not the actual failure. It's what they think everybody else is going to say.
Yeah.
Which, I'm gonna be honest, Simone's pulling out of team finals was one of the best things that ever happened for helping kids
The
understand
sport,
this.
yeah.
Because I'm like, every gymnast falls at the biggest meets in their life. I was like, literally, like, name every single person on the national team. All of them have fallen at either the Olympics or the World Championships. Like, everybody falls, everybody makes mistakes. Are you saying they're terrible gymnasts? Like, do you really think Simone is a terrible gymnast or she's not good enough? She fell at the Olympics at
Yeah.
team finals, like, and then pulled out. Like, she wasn't good enough. And they're like, of course not. Of course she's a good gymnast. So it's been helpful to have a live example.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you going back to, I forget one of the things that I had written down. I don't remember the exact analogy that you were talking about, but it's one of the things that I try to, because I had to learn this personally, is like as a college athlete, is I call it like there's two worlds. There's athlete value and human value. And oftentimes, right, we allow athlete value to spill over into our human value and making sure that like we pull those two worlds apart, right? There is athlete value and then there is human value, right? It's like, how do you guys like navigate those waters of, if this is something that like you guys talk about, of making sure to not allowing those two worlds to blend into each other, right? Because it's like, if somebody is on the side of the road and needs a tire changed and you go and help them, you're a great human, but that doesn't mean that like you're going to go to the Olympics, right? Like you're just like, right? It's like that doesn't spill over. It's not one way or the other. And so how do you guys help them like navigate those waters and not allowing them to like spill over?
Um, I tend to go like the bucket route of like, just if you had 5 buckets that really describe who you are and what values you have, like what are they, and helping them hit all 5. And because most of the time they're afraid when we have them, they're at the age of like, if my gymnastics career is done, then they feel like they don't know who they
Right.
are or what,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
they're like at that point. And so like really just being like, okay, if that's only one of 5 buckets you have, and like what if the gymnastics bucket was just like athletics or physical movement, or just like making that one piece of their whole and helping them understand that there's more to them than just that bucket. And that when they're putting all of their eggs in the one bucket and they're ignoring the rest, that's a lot of times when it starts spilling over. Like when they're
Yeah.
just in that place of like they're not, because all five of those things are really important to you. So if you're not putting the time and energy into all of those, then um, typically you don't end up being the best version of yourself that you
Yeah.
want to be. And so for me, it's just more just helping them see like their value in each one and why each one is important to them. And just helping them be able to see like where are they spending their time and how are they contributing to each bucket so that they feel like no matter what, they are still a whole. That's my typically when I just go that route, I feel like a lot of times it relieves the pressure of like that being their only thing that determines their value. And
Yeah.
it really helps them be like, oh, yeah, I do actually see that there's other contributors to my life other than this. And then the other route I sometimes go is if they're like in that phase of like, gymnastics is their value in their life, just talking about like when they're in that like I would have done this all for nothing phase, when they like are in that like I'm afraid that I'm doing all of this for nothing. I'm like, was it for nothing? Like what have you learned from gymnastics that has nothing to do with gymnastics? Like, and it's just so much about, like resilience and hard work and, all the things that we believe gymnasts are, right? And that really helps them see how that they are putting time and energy and doing that into like the gymnastics world is still giving them value outside. And that's kind of opposite of what you said, keeping them separate, but there's the values that are like that is still going to help them become the best version of themselves.
Yeah.
I do so we do a couple of things. We do a series on how to build self-confidence, that
Yeah.
confidence comes from evidence, but self-confidence is what creates the evidence. And so, but the foundation of self-confidence is that your value and your worth have nothing to do with your performance. And so we have a little graph and we have like value and worth as a constant up at the top, and then performance is like up and down.
Yeah.
We just talk about it's normal. Like we all want our performance just to always be going like this, but that's
Yeah.
just not how it works. And so I'm like, you want that. And I want to be able to just, appear in Allie's living room and time travel. And like, just because it's okay to want it, but it's not real. It's not human. And so your performance is never going to be perfect. That's just not real. It's not human. It's not going to be a thing, but your value always is. And
Mm.
so, being able to kind of explain it that way. And then that's when we use the $100 bill. And so I usually pull out $100 bill and I say, how much is this $100 bill worth? Pretend I had one. How much is it worth? And if I crumple it up and it's all wrinkled, how much is it worth now?
$100.
Still 100.
And if I do tumbling and it flips and it sticks the landing, how much is it worth?
100 bucks.
And if I put this crumpled up one next to this crisp, clean one, which is worth more?
Same.
Yeah. Like performance, what you do, how you use it doesn't, like you can use $100 to buy 100 or to buy paper clips or to buy meals for homeless people. Like the way that you use that may have a different impact in the world, but its value and its worth never changes. And so like that, so we kind of use that for that lesson. But I think, yeah, we kind of always keep coming back to like, even your value as an athlete, like how do you decide that somebody is the best, that somebody is good? Because like a competition on any one day may, like I mean, this one doesn't hit as much as it used to, but like when Michaela Maroney did not win vault, like the arguably one of the best vaulters of all time didn't win vault at the Olympics. Like, so were we really all going to say that Michaela's not the best vaulter of that season? Of course not. Everybody knows that she was. She didn't win gold though. She fell. She won silver, And so like, how do you determine in a subjective sport, especially who the best is? or if you're good enough. I was like, I used to blog. I spent a lot of time in the olden days on Twitter, and the number of fights and conversations I got in with people about Simone Biles was a terrible gymnast, like, or so and so was terrible. And like some people would be like, no, this person is the best gymnast. No, this person. And I was like, is it based on like how flexible you are? Is it based on how strong you are? Is it based on the
Right.
difficulty of your scores or on how good you are at ballet? Like, how do you decide? And the answer is that it's just people's opinion.
Opinion. Yeah.
There is no actual definition of being like the best athlete. And you may not win the competitions you want to win, but even then, like, there's no true definition of it. It's all made up. And
Yeah.
so we just get to decide ourselves if we want to believe that we're a good athlete. Because believing we're a good athlete is going to get us the results more likely that we actually are a good athlete. But even then, it's all like made up. But our value as a human, that's not made up. That's solid. That's, foundational.
Yeah. And I think to piggyback off Ali, what you said a little bit too is I'd say a super common question. I'm sure you guys come across this one is like the fear of dreaming big, right? Like, what if I write this big goal down and I don't get it? I'd rather just kind of like play it here. It's like I know I can feel successful. And
Mhm.
so like I've always come back to, and I tie this back to like identity and like these worlds of why do sports? Why do athletics? Why continue to be a gymnast through high school or through college? And so I'll ask, I'm like, why dream big? And they're like, I don't know, to get a big goal, to be successful. Like, I don't know. And I'm like, I always point back to is like, because you are the prize and you've always been the prize, right?
Mm.
And so if you dream big, how much of you is required to grow? And they were like, a pretty good bit. And I was like, and if you dream small, how much of you is required to grow? And they're like, not that much. So I'm like, it doesn't matter. Like when you walk away from here, it's like you were always the prize anyways. It doesn't matter the accolades. It doesn't matter the gold medals. I don't know who this was like. I wish I could like I heard this on like a sounded like an 1800 podcast, but I have no idea. And it was this analogy and it like made sense with this. And it was like, if you want to catch butterflies, you can run around and try to catch them and they'll probably fly away. Or you can build a garden and the butterflies will come. And even if they don't come, you still have a beautiful garden. And so it's like I relate that analogy is like the butterflies was the tangible things. You are the garden. And so it's like you build you to attract those things. And even if they don't come, it's like you were the garden anyways. You were the golden piece of the puzzle. And so helping them like recognize is like when you walk away from here, it's like whether you won everything that you wanted to or nothing that you wanted to is like knowing and being able to look in the mirror of like recognizing that like you were the prize, like in the get-go.
I love that analogy. I actually haven't heard that one. I really like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wish it was like I don't like I was listening to, those like those it wasn't even a podcast, it was like a YouTube clip of like 100 different people speaking like throughout.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like sounded like a Napoleon Hill voice. And I was like, I wish I could give credit to whoever put this analogy out there, but like I have no idea who said it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
We use different analogies, but we teach the same idea.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of you are the prize. That's really good. And we just kind of come back to the like, the goal is only valuable to have something to shoot for because it's fun. It doesn't change who you are. It doesn't change your value. Like reaching the goal doesn't make you a better person, and not reaching it doesn't not, but it's about the journey of getting there and like who you're becoming and the experience of getting there that matters. And so we go hard on like set big goals. Like I had 2 new girls last week and I was like, all right, so what's our goal for regionals? And they were like 34. And I was like, no, we're not setting a 34 goal. And I was like, what did you get at the last meet? And they're like 33.9. And I'm like, yeah, no. So like we go hard on like, no, we're going to set 38 goal and then we're going to figure out how in the heck we're going to get there, so we go after big goals, but the goal doesn't mean anything if you accomplish it. It's
Right.
just fun to go after because I'd rather spend my life going after big goals than I could sit and watch TV and eat Doritos. Like I could spend my life that way. It
Right.
wouldn't make me any less worthy as a human. But it's just
Yeah.
not, that's not a fun way to me to spend my life. That's not what I want to do. And so like for you, that's not a fun way to spend your life. You want to spend your life training your body and seeing what difficult things it can do. And so like, let's go after that. But reaching it doesn't intrinsically change anything. This is why you see people win gold medals and be really depressed afterwards because they're like, well, that was supposed to make me happy.
Yeah, right. The novelty wears off
Yeah. Yeah.
pretty quickly.
Pretty
It's
quick.
interesting
Like,
too,
especially for
is
gymnasts, I think it's literally like the next day, new goalpost.
24 hours. But it's funny, like off of that, of like how little the meaning is behind like the medal is how many like kids I've asked. I'm like, how many like national champions that on that wall over there that either weren't on your team or like that, you weren't friends with, like, can you name? And it's like most of the time zero. And I'm like, yeah. So like even if you win, it's like you literally walk by this wall every day and you can't name anybody. Right. And there was a like business influencer that I follow, and he one of like his viral posts or whatever, it was like the Queen of England died 3 months ago. She amassed more wealth than like 99.9% of people on this planet. And you probably haven't thought about her until like I wrote this post now. And his point being is like even the more successful than most of us can even fathom, right? You expand the time horizon out far enough, and it's like they don't even remember that anyways. They're going to remember like the person or whatever of like who they were close with.
Yeah.
So that one's kind of like always stuck with me of just like, okay, like even if I win, right? Like the Queen of England's like quickly forgotten. And she's here and I'm here, right? We're in different stratospheres of like how people
That
define
one hits
success.
hard. I was obsessed with like all things British royalty. I went to London and spent days going through everything. I watched her entire. I've not thought about her in probably since the day of the funeral. Like,
Right? Like it's crazy. But like in our
yeah,
brains, right? Like we're like, oh my God, this is like
yeah,
the end of the world.
yeah.
So
Oh yeah. Well, the
it's
story I ended up telling you was a dumb travel story with my team, not about how we did while we were traveling or what I scored. It was about the actual trip. So
Yeah.
that is the reality. That's what we all reminisce about, right? Too. It's not really about, oh, remember when you scored that?
yeah. Yeah. And as cliche as it is, and I'll point it back to like feelings, is like the cliche version is like you're gonna remember the memories and like all the things.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
the truth piece of that is like as you guys know, it's like you remember things best through emotion, right? Like those are the things that like hardwire into us. And so like literally if I've in the past, if I've spoken at a camp, and here's a funny story, is I'll open up and I'll say, like I'm just wild and obnoxious, and like my opening line, I'm like, at the end of this, some of you guys are gonna love me and some of you guys are gonna hate me, and that's okay. But guess what? A year from now, if you saw me in a grocery store, you'd be like, there's that crazy guy. And so literally that's probably been at this specific camp, it was like at least 2 years ago. And I was passing by a hotel room this past weekend, and this dad comes up to me and he's got his daughter next to him. He was like, hey sir, he's like, she's gonna be like super embarrassed, but he was like, she was down there eating breakfast and said, hey, if I ever saw him again I would remember him. And she was like, she pointed up to you, and I'm like, see how things work, it is emotion.
Crazy guy. That's hilarious.
I love it.
So, all right, we'll wrap this up. I have one question to end things with, and I'll let both of you guys give your thoughts and opinion on this. But kind of the ending question is, I ask everybody, is if you were in a stadium with 100,000 people and you could only leave them with one message, like what would your message be?
Oh,
Prepare
shoot.
us ahead of time for these things.
I gave you the first one, not the second one.
Stacie, do you know yours?
I mean, I think it's what I've said. Your value and your worth as a human have nothing to do with your performance. And it is about the journey of becoming who you want to be, not about the result.
Yeah. Love. Totally aligned.
Okay, I don't want to copy her, so I'm going to come up with something else. But I do think that that is a number one priority, which is probably why we are in business together.
Right, right.
Um, but I think that just normalizing, just like telling that everybody that all of the emotions are a part of the human experience and that there is a purpose and a reason for them, and labeling them as good or bad or shouldn't have them or should have them or the judgment that comes with them is really what's making them so hard rather than just being able to experience that whole experience. Because if you
Yeah.
didn't have sad, you wouldn't know what happy was. If you didn't have,
Yeah.
like, that's just a part of it and just being okay with having the entire human experience.
Yeah. I love that because I always say it's like when somebody's like, I didn't want that to happen. I was like, well, you know what's good about knowing what you don't want? You kind of know what you do want.
Well, and that's what I say when girls are like, "Oh, I'm just disappointed because I fell." I'm like, "Well, I don't think that I expect you to be like, I can't wait to fall today," or
Yeah.
like, I'm so glad I fell and didn't reach anything. Like, it's like totally fine to be bummed out that like you got injured or that things didn't go your way or like, you know what I mean? Like, it's normal to have that experience. It doesn't have to run your entire life, but like,
Yeah.
it's normal to just be okay. Like, do you really want to be happy about every single thing that happens? No.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's okay. And so I think just getting that message out there that like that is part of the human experience. Nerves and stress and all the things are a part of the human experience.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. Well, I appreciate you guys. It's funny you guys were joking about like, we have so many stories. It's like that's funny because that's kind of is the purpose of the podcast. Because I always say it's like I believe stories are what move people, stories and analogies. And like the reason I started this was like, how do I get as many stories out there as like possible? Because my story may not relate with this person over here, while your story may relate with this person over here. So I appreciate all your stories and all your analogies because that really is the reason of the podcast. So thank you again. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for
Thank you so
having
much.
us. It's been really fun.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, until next time, everybody, peace.
Bye.